This is Martin from the PLC Next Runtime support team at Phoenix Contact. In this video, we'll look at how to authenticate users on a PLC Next control device using a Microsoft Active Directory server. This feature is most useful when there's already a Microsoft Active Directory server set up as a domain controller. For this demonstration, we'll just set up a custom domain controller for a domain called plcnext.local. In an existing Active Directory server, there's probably users who are already logging in on Windows workstations, for example. In this case, our Active Directory server just has two users called PLC User 1 and PLC User 2 who already exist before we've even introduced a PLC Next control device into the network. Two main things need to be done in order to adapt this configuration to allow logins from PLC Next control devices. The first thing is that groups must be identified that reflect the roles of the users on the PLC Next control devices. You may already have suitable groups defined in your Active Directory server. In this case, we've just defined a new group called PLC Viewer, and this will reflect the viewer role on a PLC Next control device. The name of this group will just be used to identify the role of the user on the PLC Next control device. We can then go ahead and add this user to that group. In this case, PLC User 2 is a member of the PLC Viewer group. The next thing to do is to identify or create just a general user that will be used every time a user logs in. This username and password will be used to bind to the LDAP server in the Microsoft Active Directory server. In this case, we've created a user called PLC Login, and that's all that needs to be done on the Active Directory side. The Active Directory server configuration can be tested from any Linux client on the network using the LDAP search utility. In this case, a command like the one shown will be used to test the server. The password of the PLC login user is required in order to bind to the LDAP server. In the response from the LDAP server, some items to note include the common name of the user, in this case PLC User 2, the distinguished name of the user, which includes the name of the domain controller, and the member of field, showing that this user, PLC User 2, is a member of the PLC Viewer group. For the PLC Next control device, we're using an AXCF2152 with firmware version 2025.0.2 in the factory default state. In this state, there's one user defined called admin with the default password. To allow existing Active Directory users to log into this PLC Next control device, open the LDAP configuration page. Activate LDAP and add a new LDAP server. The host name can be either an IP address or the DNS name of the Active Directory server. In this case, we'll deactivate TLS mode just for simplicity. The base distinguished name is the same as the distinguished name we saw earlier, but without the common name of the user. The search filter will always be a string entered in this format. The bind distinguish name will be the distinguished name of the user that is used to bind to the LDAP server. In this case, that's the PLC login user. Again, the bind password for this user must be configured once by the administrator. In the Enhanced Configuration section, we can use the member of property of the Active Directory user to assign the role of the user on the PLC Next control device. In this case, we are mapping the PLC viewer group in the Active Directory server to the viewer role on the PLC Next control device. This configuration must now be saved and applied to the PLC Next control device. Note that we have not configured any new users in the PLC Next control device itself. We can now log out and attempt to log in using one of the usernames in the Microsoft Active Directory server. The login is successful, and you can see, based on the shortened menu on the left, that this user only has viewer privileges on the PLC Next control device. The error that is shown at the top of the screen is a known issue that will be fixed in future firmware versions and can be safely ignored. Further information about this feature is available in the PLC Next Technology Info Center under the Web-Based Management 2 menu on the LDAP configuration page.